So today we're going to do a video on how to make a Kransky. Now it's a smoked sausage, but I'll work you around some ways you can get around that if you don't have a smoker. Alright, let's get into it. G'day folks, Andy here from McDowell Manor. This is a video that resulted from a discussion I had with Sapper Rob from Essayons Family Garden. I think that's right, Rob. I'll put a link in for you too, buddy. I suggested he was doing a barbecue one night and I suggested he wanted to try some Kransky. I think he was having boerwurst or bratwurst. So I said, give this Kransky a go and see what you think. Well, he had a bit of trouble getting it and he had to get it online, God bless him. But he tried it, and him and his wife enjoyed it very much because it is quite garlicky. It's got quite a bit of pepper in it, so it's a it's a nice sausage. So I did promise him that I'd do a video that showed him how to make it, so he could make it for himself. And he tells me he's got a mincer, so that's even better. Use the wide sausage casings, Rob. Don't use the narrow ones. They're meant to be, oh, well, you've seen them. They're meant to be a nice big fat sausage. Okay, so a couple of quick things first. The Kransky is a sausage which is now been stolen by Australians, and we actually refer to it as an Australian snag, which means sausage. Its original name was Krainerwurst. What I'm going to try and do is make this as simply as possible, assuming that folks have virtually no equipment. So I'm not even going to put them in sausage skins. I'm going to make them as a patty, because I figure that way it's the same mix, but you could use them on hamburgers or all sorts of things, not just a hot dog roll. Alrighty, here we go. Let's talk about ingredients. I'm going to give you my modified version. The original version uses 5 kilos of meat, which is almost 11 pounds. I don't want to do that. I only want to use 1 kilo. So in the description I'll post this, which is Andy's version of the Australian Kransky, or Krainerwurst. It'll be tidied up so you don't have to cope with all my scribbly writing. But that converts it back down to 1 kilo, which essentially you do just by dividing everything by 5. Okay, so we're looking at 1 kilo of pork mince. You'll need some cold water. I'm going to get that at the time. You'll need some white wine, which I forgot to put out, but I actually just went and bought. Hang on a minute. There, they recommend you use a Chardonnay. I've got a particularly impressive vintage of, this year. That'll be why it only cost me $5. You'll need garlic. Now, you'll use 50 ml, so that's about 1/5 of a cup. I'll probably do 1/4 of a cup, because that's how I roll. You'll need some milk powder, 15 grams of that. Now, I got no idea how the hell much 15 grams is going to be. I'm guessing probably 1/4 of a cup. You'll need garlic, and that's the important ingredient. Now, I'm not going to measure this too carefully. What I've written in the recipe is 1 tablespoon for the 1 kilo. You'll see my very careful measurement. Use a lot of garlic. It really benefits from the garlic. And then you'll use 2 teaspoons of salt and 1 teaspoon of black pepper. And that'll just do the simple one. There are some options. You can add some diced bacon, which works really well as well. You can add some finely diced cheddar cheese, which also works well. You can add both, which would be very impressive. But I'm not going to, because I'm trying to keep it simple for folks. Alright, here we go. I'm going to mix everything together in a big mixing bowl. Normally I'd put it in a mixing bowl and then I'd run it through my mincer, which has the sausage stuffer. So I'll just have to mix a bit more carefully because I'm not even going to use the mincer today, assuming you don't have one. I just want to point a few things out before we get into the mixing. The primary things that are going to add flavour to this sausage is garlic, pepper, and the white wine, and smoke. So it's a twice cooked sausage, so what I do is really slow smoke it for an hour. That gets the smoke flavour in. Now I'm going to assume some people don't have a smoker or access to a smoker. In that case, what you do is you bake it in the oven with the temperatures that I will list in the recipe, and add to it at least a teaspoon of smoked paprika. Add that to the mix. That'll give you the semblance of the smoke flavour. The other thing to note is I don't use flour as the binder in this. It uses milk powder. And having done this recipe quite a lot, I can tell you that works quite well. Just checked it out. The 50ml is in fact a bit less than a quarter of a cup. A quarter of a cup holds 60ml. So go a little bit, not quite full quarter cup, and you'll be close enough. That's for the white wine. And that's what we're going to do. Just less than a quarter of a cup of wine and cold water. Make sure everything's cold if you can. And I'm about to add, I just wanted to show you, you can see it's a very heaped tablespoon of garlic. That's just crushed garlic, and that looks about right to me. You can use 2 cloves if you don't want to use, or even 3 if you don't want to use pre-bought crushed garlic. Actually pretty close with the milk powder. It almost was a quarter of a cup. Not quite, so don't fill it all the way up to the quarter cup. All the ingredients in there. I went a little bit heavy with the pepper because it is nice when it's a bit spicy. Remember, I don't use the smoked paprika because I have a smoker. I'm not going to use that beer. That's just my afternoon beer. For the initial mix I do with a wooden spoon, but there's nothing going to beat wash your hands and get in and give it a good mix by hand. So just like that. Squeeze it in, make sure it's well mixed, roll it over. It's a bit hard to do with one hand, but you got the general idea. Make sure it's well mixed. My firm advice is don't leave the flavour up to good luck, folks. So take a little bit, pinch it up into a ball, and shove it in a microwave for 10 seconds or so. I usually only go 10, so it's partly cooked, and try it. If it needs more, you can add it now. If you wait till later, you're in a world of pain. It's probably about a teaspoon worth, I guess, not quite. That was 10 seconds, roll it over, and 10 seconds again. Now I'm a lot more comfortable already because I can see that is holding together. It's keeping its shape really well. That's what we want. That's thanks to the milk powder. When that cools down, I'm going to try it and see if anything needs to be added. Yum. Okay, so it needs to smoke. Well, guess what? I haven't done that bit yet. But otherwise, things are pretty good. I could add a little bit more garlic. But no, I think I'm getting enough. I think it's just the smoke I need. The patty's up now. And I'll put it on some breadboards on top of some alfoil because that's easiest to put in my smoker. Don't panic if you don't have a smoker. Put it on a flat tray because your next step will be to bake it. The general shape of the patty that I make. Give it a good pat, make sure it's well formed. Now Rosie asked me some very sensible questions. One of which was, why do you bake it for so long? Won't it go dry? Well, it's a really slow bake for one thing. And the other thing is you'll notice it is quite a wet mix. Now that's deliberate because it does dry as you cook it. So I just thought it's worth mentioning. Don't worry if it's a fairly wettish, wetter than you would normally use for patties or what we call rissoles. Got me 12 rather nice size There's my model's fist to give you an idea. Nice size, reasonably plump Kransky patties. Now that one's bigger because I didn't want to make two out of it. I reckon they would have been too small. And I was just using up what I had left. So we're going to fire up the smoker and we're going to bake these at roughly 100 degrees centigrade. I'll give you the conversion in Fahrenheit for about an hour with the wood in there ready and smoking. Okay. Smoker happens to be a gas powered shelf smoker. So I'm using hickory wood, which usually I soak in wine, but I haven't done that this time. And above that there's a shelf that holds a fair bit of water, probably an inch deep water. That also helps keep things moist. Flame's on, it's running as low as it will go. Okay, we'll close her up. She's good to go. I'm not going to start the countdown on the timer until I know that the temperature's gone up. Once it's reached the right level, then I'll start counting it down. I wish the internet had smell-o-vision, because geez, I love that smell when I fire up the smoker and there's meat in there. It's beautiful. So I'm actually going to start the 1 hour from now, even though it's not at the 100. It's at, which is, what's that, about 200 for you folks in the States. The main idea is to you know, give it that good long slow baking and smoking. Yum. An hour later and we're going to open these babies up. Now you probably wouldn't think these have been baked for an hour, would you? Part of the reason is the smoke imparts a pink flavour. So I make what's called fresh sausages, which means they don't have preservatives. So there's no cure or any of that sort of stuff. What I do is, so these need a second cook. I'll fry them when I go to use them. Just make sure they're cooked through and fried up. They're beautiful. I've got to tell you, the smell's making me slobber like a dog. But if I'm not going to use them in the next 2 days, so keep them in the fridge. If you're not going to use them in the next 2 days, just whack them in the freezer. They'll keep for ages. Why use cure? Alright, I'm going to fry one up. It's off. Now I probably don't need to mention, if you've made sausages with sausage skins, yes, like the recipe says, by all means throw them in cold water and cool them down quicker, then rest them for half an hour. If, like me, you've made patties, don't throw them in cold water, just rest them. Just out of the fry pan. Let's give it a try. Hopefully I won't scald myself, because it is literally, as you can see from, as you should have seen from the steam, straight out of the fry pan. It still looks a little pinky. That's because it's smoked. That is utterly delightful. So hopefully, Rob, I've paid you back by sharing, and I think you'll probably find this may even, I'm going to go on a limb here, buddy, may even be better than your bought ones. I encourage you to have a crack. Beautiful. Okay, so feel free to subscribe to the channel. Got lots of gardening tips, lots of cooking tips, all sorts of stuff happens here. And thanks for watching McDowell Manor. Hooroo.